More people than ever are applying for handicapped parking permits.
So many, in fact, that there's now intense competition for limited real estate in local parking lots.
9 on your side, Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe found out why the problem is getting worse. Brendan?
Clyde and Carol, the number of accessible parking permits has doubled in the last decade. 1.2 million active handicap placards just in Ohio, a ratio of 1 for every 7 drivers. Yet another handicapped parking space? Look again. Paul Moore had no choice but to park his van in the farthest space in the lot.
There were no spots available. There were no handicap spots available.
Some had placards, some did not, outside this Newport gym. While we were waiting to see just who would run out, Paul in his wheelchair zipped down the length of the strip mall and took a right turn. Not to one of the accessible spaces, but all the way to the very last spot where he could be sure there was room to deploy his ramp.
So there wasn't a single space in front of the gym?
Not one.
And most of those people are in there working out. Some of them are on the stair climber.
No one like me, that's for sure.
At this gym in Oakley, there was a van accessible space open when a paratransit van pulled in. The driver was wearing a tracksuit and carrying a gym bag. He was there to work out. After seeing us taking pictures of the van designed to transport school children with disabilities, the driver's friend came out to move it for him.
I mean, it says like the van accessible.
Yeah, but he's working out.
Think about that. The driver parked in the closest space to exercise.
How can you park in a handicap spot and then go run on a treadmill?
Huh.
Are you handicapped?
Me? No.
But you drive handicapped people every day, right?
Yes.
I mean, you know that people need those spaces,
Okay,
right?
my bad. Yeah. All right. Have a nice day.
Well, there is something wrong with that if he's not handicapped.
Heather Sturgill has quadriplegia, but her biggest limitation these days is finding enough space for her ramp-equipped SUV. In this case, shoppers thought the hash marks were reserved parking for their carts.
They're located where my ramp would deploy, and I'm unable to park there at all.
The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990 and hasn't been updated in the 23 years since. While the number of placards has doubled in the last decade, the number of spaces has remained the same. A parking lot with up to 400 spots must have at least 8 accessible spaces, but only 1 has to fit a ramp, and anyone with a placard can park there.
Vans need the spots that are designated for vans.
Drivers without permits have been a problem for decades, despite the threat of a $250 fine. But with more permits out there than ever, accessible parking has become inaccessible to those who need it most.
Now when I see people get out of the car, I'll be like, you seem to have a perfectly good set of legs.
Like this guy. Look at him, walking just fine on 2 legs.
Why is he parking in the handicapped parking space? He looks like a pretty young, healthy guy.
Pete Mosier is 32, and making it to 33 may depend on finding a close spot.
Here's one right here that looks like it might be opening up.
Pete has a severe lung condition that's completely invisible to an outside observer. With barely 15% lung capacity, a long walk could be fatal.
It's like taking a full balloon and trying to push even more air into it without being able to let any of that volume out.
At the golf course, some drivers-only handicap is a number issued by the USGA. But you can't always tell by who needs a cart.
You know, I might look twice, to be perfectly honest, but I try to do the best I can not to judge, because we don't know what other people are struggling with, what battles they're fighting.
It turns out there's an app for that. Parking Mobility allows you to take pictures of violators, send them right to police. We found a number of handicapped placards for sale online, offered for collectors only. And South Carolina was having so many problems with people using other people's permits, even those who had already died, that they now require a photograph of the applicant on the placard itself.